Hi, everybody. Welcome to Big Apple Hockey. And if you're watching us right now, the reason why is because Anthony and I are going to select, we're just going to totally nerd out with a lot of fantasy hockey predictions and stuff like that right now. I, of course, am the illustrious and guy that can't get his own nameplate up right, Mark Williams. And, of course, joining me is the one and only Mr. Anthony LaRocco.
Sorry I missed you boys yesterday in the show, but I'm glad to be here today with you, Mark.
Well, glad to have you back and glad to, at least have half the band back together. We will get all three of us on again at one point sooner rather than later. First things first, before we even get started, breaking news today, Rasmus Dahlin signed with the Sabres, right?
Yeah, 3 years, $6 million per, so you got a good old bridge deal.
And Kirill Kaprizov, wow.
5 years, $9 million. They finally settled that, it seemed like that was the most bantied about contract for the last, couple of weeks. I guess Minnesota told Kaprizov, we're not going to back off 5 years. So if you want to play in the NHL this year, you got to take it.
Well, it's where, Kirill. And Kirill, it would have been spelled right if I actually would have done that. So no mistakes this time around. Although that's the way I entered the world as a mistake, it's probably the way I'm going to leave it. So we're doing our fantasy hockey show right now. And first things first, Anthony, what is your team name that you have?
I had Saucy Mitts as my team last year.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, you got to look at Saucy. That name just belongs in hockey and in hockey circles. For years, mine was Every Day I'm Haggling. And the last 2 seasons, and this one is going to be Huge Kakko. So there you go.
Actually, all right. My fantasy football team name is Gritty's Bunch, and my profile picture on the league is a picture of Gritty.
Nice. Nice. Fantasy football, I think I'm Steamed Hams in one league. And an inside joke for my bartending town people, it was Shoot It in Your Face. That's for my friend Chris from Shooters, who we all nickname Shooters. But anyway. Okay, so we're going to get started. We're going to talk first about the New York area guys. And the first things first, Anthony, is there my mouse wasn't moving. Is there a New York area player that is worth a top 5 pick?
No. Okay. I mean, Panarin's close. I think in most rankings, he's ranked around 7, 8 around there. But I mean, top 5, I think, is pretty what you would think, pretty standard. You got, McDavid, McKinnon, Draisaitl, Matthews, Vasilevskiy's in there. I know he's in 6 and some. So Panarin's close, but I mean, you can't put him ahead of any of those guys. I mean, McKinnon, Draisaitl, McDavid, they're on another level. Obviously, Matthews is a goal scoring machine.
Yeah.
It's close. Panarin's definitely the closest one to it, but no, I would say no area player is worth top 5 pick.
And the consensus is even Artemi Panarin is probably the only guy I would even think about going into the top 5. Are you going to say that he's if you're betting on at the top 5, you're probably betting that he's going to be back to the MVP form from 2 years ago. He's basically a point per game. It could very well happen, but when it comes to fantasy, especially the first round, take the bird in the hand. Don't take the projections. Don't just fall in love with a player because they're like, oh, wait, this guy's going to go for – no, take the guarantees. Because when you whiff on your first round selection, you very much are going to be biting your lip the entire time.
Yeah.
We got a comment right there. Yeah, well, Panarin maybe for the top 5, but not Fox. But we'll get into that. We'll have plenty of Adam Fox for you in a minute. Okay, so going over right away, the other major point producer in this area, Mika Zibanejad. Where do you draft him? Is he still a second round pick? Could he be a late first round pick? Probably not in a 12-team league. And where would you say it's too far to get him?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think he's a first round pick. Second, maybe a late second round pick. It's funny. Fantasy hockey is totally different than fantasy football. Fantasy football, you have you have the elite, 5 or 6 running backs who go pretty much all in a row. And then someone will take the top receiver and that sets off some dominoes. But hockey, there's so many good players comparable that you can get in late rounds. There's just so much talent. So Zibanejad, he's a really good player, but there's a lot of players that I think I would pick before him, and very defenseman, goaltender. I don't put Zibanejad in that upper elite echelon of players that you think of. Okay, I got to grab Mika Zibanejad. So, I would say he's definitely not a first round pick. But I could see him going, anywhere from, second round to as late as maybe the 4th round.
Yahoo's got him ranked at number 32, and it's a sharp drop off from what he was last year. We all know this.
Yeah.
We all know the question is also which one are you going to get? You're going to get the Mika Zibanejad from the end of last year or the beginning of last year. That's where the hard part is going to be. Once again, first couple rounds, take the guarantees. Take whatever you can for the guarantees. I'd put him in the 3rd round, early 3rd round. You could go late 2nd round if you're afraid that if you want him, you're targeting him, and he's not going to be there when you get back. See, because fantasy football is one of those things where we all know, grab the running backs, grab the wide receivers, quarterbacks are going to be late in the draft, and you're still going to get the same value. More on that comparison in a little bit, but that's just where you have to look at and go, I'm gonna reach for somebody. Centers, there's always going to be a productive center that's out there. But the question is Mika Zibanejad elite? We'll find out soon enough. I would take him if I was like the last pick of the 2nd round. I would think I would consider in there. But if not, he's a 3rd rounder. So, all right. Out of the 2 now premier defensemen in. Oh, hold on. Let's just go to a comment that just got in. All right. Fantasy. All right. Well.
Yeah.
Yes. That's and fantasy hockey is like baseball.
That's why a lot of people, it's not even diehard hockey fans maybe necessarily don't do fantasy hockey, because you literally have to change your lineup every day. So it's a lot more time consuming. Whereas fantasy football, you pay attention to the waiver wire after Sunday and you adjust your lineup, but it's not as doesn't require as much time.
No, and also because of the point system, you get it all in one day, possibly 3, and your team's going to be right there and there. All right. So the 2 premier defensemen now in this division, as Dougie Hamilton enters, which one would you draft first?
Adam Fox.
Not even a thought towards Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah, pretty much Adam Fox. I mean, Dougie Hamilton is capable of putting up the points like him, but I'd be concerned on New Jersey, plus minus. The Rangers are going to be the better team. This is pretty easy. Adam Fox.
Okay, good, because I'm right there with you. Adam Fox, 100%. That power play is especially the first unit is going to be outstanding. Who is the highest New York Islander you'd consider drafting, and where?
Well, obviously this has to be Matt Barzal, or probably Semyon Varlamov. As we all know, the Islanders are an elite team, but when it comes to fantasy hockey, being that Trotz plays a defensive-minded system, they don't individually put up the eye-popping points. So definitely Barzal, though. This is a guy that in his rookie year, scored 85 points. He has the talent level to score that or even more. It's just the system constrains him, and it's made him all better all around player. So with that said, skill alone, Barzal is a top 10 pick. But when it comes to fantasy hockey wise, I would say maybe I haven't really saw where the projections are letting him land. Me personally, I'd probably take him maybe in the depending on how the draft's going and what people take before me, maybe the fourth or fifth round. I don't
You'd
know.
be exactly correct the way Yahoo's got it. Yahoo's got him at 62 in the 12-team league. That would put him into the 5th round.
Yeah. So that's what I figured. And the other one is Varlamov because, you can make the case, after Vasilevskiy, Hellebuck, Varlamov's been one of the better goaltenders in National Hockey League statistically. He's put up phenomenal numbers. I know I've gotten frustrated with him a couple of times, sometimes letting the soft goal, but the fact is he gets the wins and he always has a really good save percentage in GAA. So if not Barzal, I would say he'd be the other one, depending on how they want to take a goalie.
Oh, actually, and you know something? I hate to do this on air, but I actually forgot one question I wanted to throw in there. And yes, it has to do with Semyon Varlamov. Okay. Gonna get that in there really fast. All right. Let's actually go right back to the goaltenders once again. And you mentioned Semyon Varlamov. So put these goalies in order and how you would want them drafted. Igor Shesterkin, Alexander Georgiev, Varlamov, Ilya Sorokin, and Mackenzie Blackwood. With probably Mackenzie Blackwood getting the most amount of games out of all those guys.
I mean, this is, I would say Varlamov is number one. He's on the better team and he's very good. Number two, you gotta go Igor. And then number three, Mackenzie Blackwood, just based on he's the starter. And then Ilya Sorokin, fourth. However, that list could change, fairly easily. I think any one of, maybe outside of Mackenzie Blackwood, I think any one of these guys can easily be ranked number one if you were just talking not fantasy, just on talent alone and upside. But when it comes to fantasy wise, you gotta go with the starting goaltenders first. And then from there, prioritize, okay, which is on the better team. So that's why Varlamov, in my opinion, easily is the first. Then Igor, based on he's a starter and the Rangers are supposed to be better than New Jersey. Think Igor is going to get more wins than Blackwood. And then obviously Mackenzie Blackwood, as I stated, because he's a starter, and then Sorokin. But you're gonna have to watch how things develop. If you're a guy that takes Varlamov, maybe in the later round, if you want to pick up a third goalie or you want to get Sorokin too, because I think this year it's going to be closer to a 1A, 1B, almost maybe an identical split in games, with the potential of Sorokin taking the reins at some point. And if that happens, Sorokin will shoot up from 4 to possibly 1 or 2 in that regard. But right now, that's how I would rank them.
And also throwing in there as well, this is an Olympic year, and Semyon Varlamov is poised to go to the Olympics for Team Russia, or the Olympic athletes from Russia, whatever they're called right now. And that might actually get Ilya Sorokin even more games. I would probably stick with the same ratings that you had. I'd go Varlamov, Igor, Mackenzie, Ilya, and then Alex. Georgiev seems to not do as well with a lot more playing time. But you could use him as a spot starter. Varlamov had 7 shutouts last year, and I believe 4 of them were against the New York Rangers. That's not going to happen again.
That's immensely valuable in fantasy hockey, shutouts and wins.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And by the way, the league you play in, do you guys do head-to-head, or do you do rotisserie?
Head-to-head.
Yeah, because I used to do a rotisserie league for years, and then we got rid of that, went to head-to-head. I won my league literally in 1 week because I had Vasilevskiy and rookie Jordan Binnington. They had 5 shutouts in that 1 week. So
Do you run your league?
no, I don't.
All right.
Yeah.
If you need another player, I'd be willing to do another league. I'm in.
I'll let my friend John know. So and he runs all things Islanders. He'll probably end up
Yeah.
um
You know what's funny? As much as Phil loves hockey and is a hockey nut, he doesn't do fantasy hockey for whatever reason. Did you know that?
yeah, I used to love baseball, and fantasy baseball actually was one of the reasons why I ended up not loving baseball as much.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want Jason Botterill managing my fantasy hockey team. Never mind that. Let's go with the young players in the around this area. Which one of these guys that we're going to list, the big ones, the two number ones, Lafreniere and Hughes, Oliver Wahlstrom, or someone else is going to have the biggest upside this year?
I lean towards Jack Hughes. You'd think he's going to break out eventually in a big way. He's I mean, they're all really talented. Lafreniere, Hughes, Wahlstrom to a lesser level, but when it comes to pure shooting, Wahlstrom might be the best of the three. But I want to say Jack Hughes. I think if the Devils are going to take the next step, he's the guy, and he has all the tools. He's fast. He's shifty. Looks like as he's getting older, he's going to mature, probably put on more weight, become stronger. You got to remember, these guys are kids when they come in; they're not men yet. And after a couple of years, you start to develop that strength. And then as far as Wahlstrom goes, Wahlstrom, as we checked before, he scored 12 goals in 44 games. So in a 82 game season, that's like just shy of like a 30 goal pace. So I think Wahlstrom can easily score 25 goals this year, and that would be phenomenal for the Islanders. And he's going to get power play time, so power play points and fantasy's big. And then Lafreniere, obviously, he's immensely skilled too. I think Gallant's going to utilize him in better ways. So he's going to have the opportunity to really blossom too. So this is really tough, but I'm going to stick with Jack Hughes just because I think he is the most talented of the three.
I think the hard part is going to be if it is going to be Hughes, he's going to have to do it all. Like he's going to have to generate the play. I really want to say it's Jack Hughes. I am going to go with Lafreniere, and also because when you get him, he's around the ninth or the 10th round. If you get him too early, I don't think I'd go past the 8th round for him. That's if you're being a real homer. But around the 9th round is where you should maybe target Alexis Lafreniere. And the word coming out today that he is going to play some right wing. Is going to be very interesting, because does that mean now Chris Kreider doesn't move down, and now he's that play driver that we were talking about that Pavel Buchnevich was, and he's going to get that right wing time. And I mean, that kid can play almost anywhere. Okay, so we look at our teams. We look at the late rounds. You're talking like 12 to 16. Who's the guy you would target a late round to be like, this guy's going to surprise you?
For a late round?
Yeah.
I would say for the Rangers, I think like Kakko could be a late round pick. I think a lot of people are betting on him, breaking out offensively. Because if he has another just average to below average year offensively, the question is going to start to seep in whether or not, this guy is going to live up to his draft status, and if he's going to become an offensive player. Looked like he got bigger and stronger, so he could very well happen. So a late round pick, you want to take a player like that you're betting on. That would be my pick. For the Islanders, I gotta go with probably Oliver Wahlstrom. I think again Wahlstrom has a elite level shot. He's going to get consistent power play time in that OV spot, and he might end up playing with Barzal on the top line. And if that happens, I think he has the potential to score even more. The only question is for the Islanders, who plays at Barzal. It's either going to be Palmieri or Wahlstrom, with the other one playing with Parise and Pajot. So if Wahlstrom lands on the top line of Barzal, I think he's going to be immensely valuable to, late round picks in fantasy hockey, just because he's playing with an elite playmaker, facilitator, and he's got the shot to finish when Barzal gets him the puck. So those would be the two guys for me.
One thing that's difficult about doing this before the preseason starts is we don't know where some guys might end up on which lines. That could also change some things for next week, but we also want to get this out before the drafts start. We just mentioned, as you just mentioned, Wahlstrom, he could be the real surprise. Don't be surprised if Zach Parise is a good sleeper in the late rounds. But also, I'm going to look at the players that we had over there. Any of the Ks on the New York Rangers, Kravtsov or Kaapo Kakko would be the ones I would look at. And I'll throw this name at you for the New Jersey Devils because he's going to be in my sleepers probably later on when we do the NHL, is Igor Serengovich.
Yeah.
If he's playing with Jack Hughes, I think there's going to be some chemistry there. And I think that would be definitely somebody I would look to go get.
I agree.
Yep. So, Big Apple guy that you would be targeting.
So when you say Big Apple guy, you just mean New York player,
New York area, the guys that we're talking about.
Okay. I would say from the Islanders, I would use a pick on JG Pajot in the late rounds, because he can score 20 goals. He had 14 in only 50-something games, and he's good in the circles. And as we know, face-offs get you points in fantasy hockey. And I like him. So that happens a lot. That he brings everything to the table. I know not all of it is relevant for fantasy hockey, but there are some stuff he brings that could make him valuable in certain categories like face-offs, plus minus. For the Rangers, I think you got to go with the obvious. I mean, Adam Fox, he's one of the better skating offensive defensemen in the league. He's going to put up the points. He should still have a pretty good plus minus there too. But I mean, aside from Panarin, which everyone's going to be targeting, I think Fox is a good choice there.
Yeah, I think I'd have to basically ignore a lot of my draft strategy to make sure I got on Adam Fox. Now again, that doesn't mean draft him in the first and the second round. No, don't do that. He should still drop to the third round. Because you're gonna get those people that are gonna still want to pick Hedman and McCarr ahead of him. So it's just the way that's gonna go. If not them, I mean, by the way, Pajot is a good point because he'll also get you hits and he'll also get you plus minus. And he'll get it for relatively cheap. A little bit of team bias. Actually, you know something, Brody? I find in fantasy, I try to avoid my teams. Because I don't want to be rooting against them, or unless it's greatly in my interest, or I end up taking Brett Howden, thinking he's going to break out, and then he's Brett Howden. So, all right. So the Big Apple area guy that I'm trying to avoid.
Well, for the Rangers, I'm going to avoid Chris Kreider. I think he's too much of a mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get from him. Obviously he has the speed and he can score. But this is a guy who is not very smart or defensively reliable, so his plus minus might not be all that great. And he just disappears for too many stretches, and then he'll be hot and then he disappears again. So for me, he's too inconsistent. For the Islanders, I'm going to say, this is Josh Bailey.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's he performs well in the playoffs and he's a solid player, but he doesn't do anything spectacular. He's like your prototypical good player, but not fantasy wise. He's not a center, so he won't get any points in the faceoffs. He doesn't throw hits. He doesn't score a lot of goals, maybe around 11 or so. He does get assists. He definitely gets his fair share of assists, but overall, he's not a guy that, I would go out of my way to take on my fantasy team.
Late rounds is definitely where you make it in fantasy drafts. I was able to get Kirill Kaprizov in the 12th round last year. Yikes. That was like people not wanting to do any research. But Chris Kreider, if it was a rotisserie, yeah, I would take Chris Kreider in a heartbeat. Especially in the late rounds, because he'll give you hits, he'll give you power play production, he'll give you goals. But he's also too streaky. It's where head to head, I would definitely try to avoid him. I'm trying to think of a different guy other than Chris Kreider. Well, Jacob Trouba on top of that. Also, don't really. They're just not great fantasy guys, Pelech and Pullock. So don't necessarily go for them. I still thought Pullock was going to develop into a top 10 fantasy defenseman, and just he never has taken that jump. And I think it was you that said it last week, or maybe even it was Phil. Unless Pullock suddenly just like drinks magic water, it's probably not going to happen. So that would just be a sad thing. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the rankings and some of the players that we mentioned for the New York area hockey teams and fantasy wise? This is just fantasy. And after all, as Billy Joel said, sometimes a fantasy is all you need. Throw it down in the comments below. And also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We're going to move on now to going around the league. Yeah, because this is more of the NHL besides just us. Anthony, I'm not sure who to take number one overall. Is there a player that really jumps out at you that you would take if you had the first pick in the draft?
Yeah, I'm really liking this this kid from Russia. I believe his name's Sergei Fedorov. I think he's supposed to be pretty good.
Oh yeah, Sergei Fedorov. Yeah. I mean, there was this other guy from Sweden, I think it was, or maybe even Finland, Reijo Ruotsalainen. I thought about taking him number one overall. We're joking, folks. It's obviously McDavid. So going right down to business. After Connor McDavid, who is the rest of your top five that you would go with?
I go Nathan McKinnon, Leon Draisaitl, Austin Matthews, on probably Andre Vasilevskiy, and then I mean I might go with, because technically speaking, then that would be Panarin at 6 if you're not counting McDavid at 1. So maybe Artemi Panarin.
There's one guy you're missing, and I'm going to mention him in a second.
Who am I?
Well, I had him 2 years ago or 3 years ago in his MVP season, but Nikita Kucherov had Kucherov had more power play points than more than I think it was 5 teams had point leaders.
Yeah,
so he had more power play points than teams. So, but that's assuming Tampa Bay can beat Tampa Bay again. That's where the hard part is. The Yahoo rankings, I'm going to go with theirs first. McDavid, Kucherov, McKinnon, Draisaitl, and then Brad Marchand.
Yeah,
I could go, honestly, McDavid, Kucherov, and then Draisaitl. Then I'd go McKinnon, and then I go Matthews at 5. Yeah. And wow, Mika Rantanen all the way up to number 7 in the Yahoo draft rankings. So how about that? But yeah, because the reason why you forgot is because he didn't play last year, except for in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That didn't have any effect on the league or anything, did it?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
No.
So, what's a player you could think of that his stock just is rising and rising and rising?
I think Cale Makar.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Cale Makar is really good. I know he's already broken out, I guess you could say, but I really think he's going to unleash himself on the rest of the league. That Colorado team is a juggernaut offensively, and the way he skates and the way he jumps into the play. He's my pick for right now to win the Norris Trophy. and lead all defensemen in points. I just think he's an unreal talent on the back end. He's like a galloping horse when he skates, and just the way he stick handles and moves laterally for a defenseman, it's pretty incredible.
I'm gonna go Jonathan Huberdeau. I think this year you're really going to see some A+ production out of him and Alexander Barkov, and I think they even might have Sam Reinhart on their other wing. You might see an explosion out of Florida this year. Yeah. That's what I mean. You're talking about, and there's some good late round value. We're going to go more into that in a minute. But it's just as far as they go, they can be a real good team. So I would go with Huberdeau. I think we got the same guy, both of us, for whose players' stock is falling. Actually, we may not. I'll see if I can switch it up for us, just for our viewers.
You go first.
I'll go Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel is persona non grata. Jack Eichel would be a first round draft pick in this, and I don't want any part of him this entire season. Yeah. If you're telling me I could draft him in the 16th round, I'd still wonder if I'm wasting a roster spot.
I mean, that's really hard to argue, but I'll go Brady Tkachuk. Doesn't seem like it's particularly close with him in Ottawa, and the longer you miss camp and the beginning of this, preseason, and maybe even the beginning of the regular season, it becomes hard for you to catch up to everybody else when they're in mid-season form. You're still like in training camp mode. So he's a guy that I would avoid right now, just because you don't know when he's going to sign, and how much time he misses, and then when he does sign, how he's going to be once he gets going. So.
If you missed our show last week, Anthony and I discussed RFAs that could potentially miss time.
2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks. Oh, it was last week, wasn't it?
Well, this week's show was technically ready. Yeah, I guess it was last week.
It was still 7 days.
Yeah.
So what we all said was we kind of had the consensus Kirill Kaprizov was going to miss time.
Yeah. Yep.
It's looking like it's going to be Brady Tkachuk. And as far as fantasy owners are concerned, I had William Nylander the year he held out.
Mm.
Don't take a guy that holds out. Generally speaking, it never works out for anyone involved. It doesn't work out for the team, doesn't work out for the player, it doesn't work out for fantasy owners. So avoid all those guys in holding out. And it's just like that. By the way, while we're on this, I guess we're gonna have to talk about two other guys whose stocks are dropping rapidly: Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
If they're missing time, you can't touch these guys in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah, it seems like I would guess that they signed before Tkachuk, but you never know. Honestly, it's really too up in the air. But all the stuff I read today was that Jim Benning is confident that they're going to get signed, and it's not going to be a problem going forward. But I guess we're gonna have to see. I think at this point Pettersson sees what Kaprizov got, and I don't know if Vancouver can afford to pay him $9 million and Quinn Hughes $8 million right now. So they're in a tough spot, but I do think they both get done before Tkachuk.
Okay. Draft these 3 Norris Trophy finalists in order: Makar, Hedman, and Fox.
Well, you just what I talked about Makar, what I said about him. So
we know number 1 is going to be Makar.
Makar, Fox, and then Hedman. But you could put any of these guys number 1. But I go Fox ahead of Hedman just because Hedman is coming off an injury. I know he's he should be okay, but he's played a lot of hockey the last 2 years and won back-to-back cups. That takes a toll on you physically and mentally. And obviously Adam Fox had a phenomenal year last year. So you really can't go wrong. That's it with Tom Wilson. You really can't go wrong with either in any order, but yeah, I'm pretty confident with Makar, Fox, Hedman.
And I gotta agree with you. I think this is the year Makar breaks out, but he seems to always kind of get a little bit hit by that injury bug. Adam Fox is always healthy. I think there's going to be a lot of doubters that are going to doubt him and knock him down a little bit. I would actually go, but I'd put my faith in Makar with that absolutely outstanding offensive team. So I'd probably go Makar, Fox, and then Hedman in that order. There were times where I've gotten Hedman as late as the 4th round.
Yeah.
And there's times where I've gotten him earlier. So it all depends.
Who makes your team there, Mark?
Well, first things first, I would say the hottest hockey player that I know is right here.
Wow.
Actually, I just sprung on a brand new stick today, so hopefully there's some magic in that and not the crap that's been in my sticks in the last couple games. So that's not true. Just the last game. The game before that, I had a couple strong games. What are just some rookies you're kind of looking at?
Hold on.
All right, go ahead.
Malkin. I think Malkin would cap. Yeah, he's about as hot as Mr. Red.
Yeah, I mean, you could put the bolts in Malkin's neck and immediately call him Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's. I think. Listen, I'm as straight as an arrow, but if Roman Josi, that he's a very handsome man. He would captain a hot guy team.
Yeah, not for nothing. Hockey usually has some of the better looking athletes. Yeah. And if you don't believe me, let me just remind you: Carrie Underwood sings the song for the most watched program in America every single week, and it's only for about 20 weeks that she does it for that. She married a hockey player. Keep that in mind, everybody.
Yeah. So Carrie Underwood is very easy to look at too.
Yeah, and also, very talented. We can also say that too. Yep. It's okay. We don't have to be pigs the entire time. All right. So, what are some of the rookies that you're looking at?
Well, you got to go with the first one. Obvious how he performed in the playoffs. Goal Caulfield. I think he's really going to take off. Quinton Byfield, who was my pick for the Calder. You got to look at him. Then you got to. I'm like pulling a Mark right now. Vasilevskiy Potaliskin I can't his weird Russian name. I'm pronouncing it in Vancouver.
Okay.
Podzolkin. I think he can really break out for Vancouver. Nedeljkovic, I believe, still has rookie status for Detroit, and he was a Calder finalist as it is last season. So. Look for him to improve upon a great rookie year. Then you have, Trevor Zegras in Anaheim, Drysdale. So this year's rookie class, even though it's not gonna, thanks, Steven. I appreciate. Even though this year's rookie class doesn't have any of the guys drafted from this year in the top 5 playing. I think it's going to be a good class, but Caulfield's at the top of the list for me, and Byfield. But again, don't be surprised if Trevor Zegras, can steal Rookie of the Year. He's really talented, but those are the main guys that I would keep your eyes on for this coming season.
I would say obviously Zegras. And just adding onto your list, the one guy you didn't mention, Moritz Seider, in Detroit.
Yes.
And a matter of fact, there we go. Yeah. And I'm going to be mentioning his name in another minute.
My problem with him though is he's going to play in a bad Detroit team. He's going to get a lot of minutes, but that concerns me. I don't know if I would take him on my fantasy team.
Well, that's where I think that's where you can find the some of these hidden gems. 4 years ago, I think it was, I had Thomas Chabot, and I got him in the 15th round or something ridiculous, and might have been the 14th, and he ended up being the leading defenseman in scoring that year. Yeah, I had to sacrifice on plus minus, but I had other guys that were generating plus minus. Yeah. Although, just for full disclosure, I had 8 picks in the top 5 rounds that year. So it was kind of a little bit easier to draft the bottom 5 when you have some of those really high ones. That's what happens when you play dynasty leagues. You make a lot of trades. After that, my friends were like, nope, never again. We're not doing that. All right. Going from strategy though, other than Vasilevskiy, how long do you usually hold out before you get a goalie? Because as I was mentioning with quarterbacks, usually in NFL fantasy drafts, usually you go in maybe Pat Mahomes, maybe Russell Wilson. There's like a handful of guys you would take before the 3rd round.
I got Kyler Murray in the 3rd round.
Oh, nice. Okay, good.
And he's been a beast.
Yeah.
So far.
But how long do you usually hold out before you start drafting your goalies?
Again, I think a lot of it depends on the trend. All it takes is one guy to take a goalie, and then some others start to follow because you panic. You'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to get shut out without getting an elite goalie," and it happens in fantasy football. So I would try to hold out, until obviously Vasilevskiy is an exception. He's like a top 5 pick. But after Vasilevskiy, I would maybe try to go to the 4th round, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Before I take a goalie.
You just gave me a bad flashback, hence the eye roll that I had right there. Because it always happens in every single draft. Somebody reaches too high, too fast. I think Igor Shesterkin went in the 5th round last year. And I'm going, that's too high. And then immediately guys are flying off the board. Yeah. And then it affects your draft plans. Hey, quick question for you, Anthony. What's a goalie you don't think I absolutely do not want on my team?
Tristan Jarry.
Well, actually, you know what? Now it's Tristan Jarry. But last year, Carey Price. I took him in the 5th round. Oh. Holy crap. Was that a terrible pick? So he had one of the worst seasons of his career. So yeah. I have extra reason to just fuel this fire. And I just, Carey. And checking in on some of the comments. Yes. By the way, some following prospects are very useful, and Detroit's got a lot of them that are all coming up. Now, just really quick on this one. Okay, well, I thought you were talking about Henrik Lundqvist back 15 years ago, but it's possible that Lundqvist could take a run at it, but he's going to have to get number 1 power play time in order to do it. Not many guys do that without getting the power play time. Newhook, Sider, Lundqvist, Zegras, and Caulfield, all from our friend Statboy Steven. Which I'm told now he has to start charging for a podcast appearance. I still don't understand what that person was saying. Yeah, but I agree with you. You gotta hold out because after the 5th round, most of your goalies are all the same.
Yeah.
And you can get guys that fall a little bit more. I think in my draft that I had over here, I reached and I took Robin Lehner in the 3rd round. Yeah. That worked out for me well last year. So if you, again, take the guarantees, don't reach for no reason. Are there any teams, divisions, conference, or however you want to say, that you're looking at those guys and go, I don't want any part of anybody on those teams?
Divisions, no. Teams. I mean, Arizona's. I don't really think they have a great fantasy player. I mean, Phil Kessel and Clay. Well, actually, Jacob Chikrin, I would take. I think he's actually a really good defenseman. Again, his plus minus being that he's on a bad team that could be concerning. But yeah, I would try to stay away from Arizona, Buffalo. Those are the 2, and Detroit to an extent as well. But other than that, I don't really care what division a team plays in. But so
yeah, because you know what, we're not gonna have the no defense Canadian division this year.
Yeah,
that's the reason why the words or divisions that you'd ever want to go with. Although I do have to say, if I'm drafting people, I might target guys in the West in say Edmonton, Vancouver, not Seattle. Seattle's going to have trouble scoring goals. Vegas, especially like Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone, because they're going to be playing against some bottom feeders. They're going to be playing against the almost at Tampa Bay. Jeez, they're going to be playing against the Anaheim Ducks, who are tanking.
Yeah,
they're going to be playing against the LA Kings, who are rebuilding. They're going to play against the San Jose Sharks, who don't know that they're tanking. And I mean, Seattle might be decent, but I really don't know where their goal scoring is going to come from. And then you also got the Canucks, whose defense is, we've already outlined that they've got their issues. And who knows? I mean, Travis Green might be on the chopping block mid-season, so they could be struggling too. And then, of course, there's the Edmonton Oilers, who are trusting their goaltending to
Mike Smith,
Koskinen and a 42-year-old Mike Smith. Mike Smith, 1 year younger than me.
Yeah, I don't understand the decision to go back with that tandem. I really don't. It's
well, you know, Ken Holland's got a Oilers got to oil. Am I right? That's
right.
That's where we're right like that. A player that could bring you the most value, you think?
Most value. I mean, I mean, I guess maybe he's getting older, but maybe Patrice Bergeron, because he's gonna get you shorthanded goals. He's gonna get you points in the faceoff circle. He's gonna get you goals and points. I'll get you power play points. So I mean, that's because you could say McDavid, but you know, obviously he's the best player in the league. But when it comes to you know faceoffs and hits and all that type, shorthanded points, all that stuff, there are better option. What other better option is there? Bergeron, who's not an elite scorer, but you know he's a guy that could get you 60 to maybe 70 points. And like I said, bring it in the faceoff circle, the plus minus, shorthanded points, and all that.
I gotta just look him up right here just to see where he's at, because I could see him going incredibly low. Patrice Bergeron down at number 46. Do you know his line mates are ranked number 5 by Yahoo and number 9? Yeah. That's a lot of value you can get with a guy that's going to be drafted that low. And the funny thing is, I could see him even going down even lower. Yeah. I think there might be value in, say, a Ryan Strome late in the draft, if he's still getting number 1 power play time. And you might be able to get value out of, you got to be able to get value out of Kakko right now. I think there's going to be lots of value out of Moritz Seider. As long as people don't reach for him, he's going to be a hell of a player. You're going to get a lot of guys out of Detroit. Tyler Bertuzzi, although we have breaking news on him, he is not vaccinated and will not play in Canada whatsoever. So that means he's missing at least, we said it before, 10 games.
Yeah, first I calculated it wrong because obviously they do home. So, you know, they're going to play Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa twice in Canada. So that's 6 games right there. And then each against the Western Conference Canadian team. So, yeah, that's about 10. Yeah,
well, you got Winnipeg, Calgary, Vancouver, and Edmonton. So there you go. But by the way, I'm going to go right back to this. What's one player that most people are going to reach too far for? I think it's going to be Igor Shesterkin again. I think everybody's going to think this guy is going to break out. There's a lot of fantasy pundits that are trying to say that this is the year he's going to do it. And the one thing Ranger fans have kind of seen so far is that Igor's had trouble being healthy. Granted, 1 year was a car crash. You can't really go with that. And the other one is his groin that happened last year. But he's got a great save percentage. His save percentage just in the month of February, which translates probably to December or mid-January this year, is usually around 930 or something like that. It's something ridiculous.
I saw goalie rankings the other day, and I couldn't remember. I know Sorokin was ranked 8th, and I'm pretty sure Shesterkin was 2 ahead of him. I think he was 6. And then Varlamov was ahead of Shesterkin, I think, in the top 3 or so, if I remember correctly.
Preseason, I think that's too high to put Sorokin.
He was 8. The way I saw, he was listed at 8.
Yeah. That's too high to put Sorokin, I think, in the preseason. We'll see. We'll check in with me in January about that. So who do you think a guy's going to reach for?
I think a lot of Ranger fans love Adam Fox, and rightfully so. Yeah.
And of course, Oilers got to oil.
He's fantastic. But I think some Ranger fans might take him real high just because they like him so much. And nothing wrong with it, but I think that's going to happen with a lot of Ranger fans.
Yeah. And again, we're going to get those guys that you look at and go, oh, what are you doing? And as soon as somebody starts so I guess let me type this up as a question for you. Okay, here we go. What fantasy draft trend do you just despise? Like every time it happens, you're just rolling your eyes as soon as it happens. Like just now, I just dropped my pen. But so I roll my eyes about it. Usually the goalie rush is the one thing I can't stand. And then the sleeper rush is the next one.
I think, yeah, I agree with that. I think I hate the trend of trying to essentially be the smartest guy in the room, like overthink it. Not my fantasy league, but my brother-in-law's said that someone took Saquon first. And it's like, what are you trying to do? Like, again, you're trying to get too cute. You're trying to think like, oh, like I said, you're the smartest guy in the room. Oh, you think he's healthy now, he's going to be the best. And it's just, no, sometimes just don't overthink it. If you have the number 1 pick, just take Connor McDavid. Don't take Nathan McKinnon because, you think he's just going to, bust out. Like, just play it safe.
Right. Like hockey in general doesn't exactly go with the same like weird rankings. Like their rankings have been usually pretty fair. I remember in baseball for a better part of 5-6 years, every single ranking always had Hanley Ramirez being the number 1 ranked player.
Yeah.
And I always rolled my eyes on when I'm taking Albert Pujols. They're like, well, what do you mean? Hanley Ramirez. I'm like, I've had Hanley Ramirez. He's not as good as what people are projecting. And it's, again, they're a lot more fair about where the rankings are. Well, how many other seasons would the ranking picking the Norris winner be a mistake?
That's not what I said. I said I think the Ranger fans are gonna just take him too high just because they like him so much because they're thinking with their heart, their favorite team. They're not necessarily,
And again, I was saying he's going to drop to the 3rd round, or at least he should. Yeah. You're going to draft Sidney Crosby ahead of Adam Fox.
Yeah, you got it.
There's
no doubt about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of those guys that are going to go ahead of him. A matter of fact, just looking down right here. Gee, how low do they rank him on this Yahoo one? What does the Fox say? Somebody actually played. They rank him at 73. Holy crap! Really, Yahoo? I understand fantasy is different than reality, but 73.
That's the thing about it. Like, as good as he is, there's so many forwards who are gonna get you a lot more points and more overall value to your fantasy team.
That is correct. But Yahoo's got Dougie Hamilton at 33, Victor Hedman at 40, Cale Makar at 43, Darnell Nurse, Roman Yossi, and then Adam Fox. I don't know about Darnell Nurse having 17 goals again.
I wouldn't bank on Nurse getting 17 goals again either.
Jacob Chikrin's down at 125, and the thing I'll tell you about that is his shooting percentage is going to go down, but I think his shots are going to go up.
Yeah.
That's why I think I think he's going to be just fine. But
I
I
like
mean,
other than the fact that he plays for Arizona. And
sometimes, but that's where you could get a guy that's just really good on a bad team.
Speaking of Arizona, I love that they brought back the white Kashina jersey. They went back to the logo permanently. That's a beautiful jersey.
Ariana, you're right about that, but I mean, he hands McDavid he gives a drop pass to McDavid. He goes coast to coast. But if you want to look at a guy that's going to give you some good value, going back to the other one, Neil Pionk at 120.
Yeah.
He'll climb a little bit in that as well. I mean, hell, you get good defensemen that aren't even mentioning yet. But yeah, their rankings are, as to say in Yiddish, a little fakakta. So, all right, if I mispronounced it, which I probably did. Let's be honest. I'm actually pretty decent with pronunciation. Hey, how's it going, Poppy? But I mean, it's when you start seeing that trend, how do you not resist? All right, I gotta go get my goalie now.
Yeah.
Or I gotta get this guy that I was like, if I got more at Cider, I'm expecting him in the 12th round, and then somebody reaches up and gets him at 8. Or they start picking Quentin Byfield around then. You go, no. All right. That actually does conclude our hockey preview for the fantasy. Of course, the one thing I do want to address one thing before we sign off. We're actually not going to do much Q&A. The only fantasy oh wait, hold on, this is Stevens. The only fantasy where I pick up Nurse is the one where I'm not to talk about it publicly.
We could do
because the missus would definitely have a problem with that. But again, and Ariana 100% right. But we are gonna take this one. So Phil put this in our group chat earlier. Gallant says at his presser, we'll have captain by game 1. What's your thoughts?
It's similar to what happened with the Islanders, and Barry Trotz. He named the league captain the night of the opener, and so we kind of could speculate Gallant wanted to go in there, read the room, see who he would think of after doing evaluations, who would be captain material if he thought there was anybody. And clearly, so far already, he feels as though has that decision that there is a captain that he's comfortable slapping the C on his chest. So who I think it's going to be. One, I can tell you it's not going to be a Panarin, as Panarin has basically said that he's not interested in it. So I'm going to go Adam Fox or Jacob Trouba. Those are my 2 picks.
I'm going to go either Chris Kreider or Adam Fox, because he's going to sign long-term. They might want to go that route. Because Tampa Bay did it all right, where it was a Cavalier, then they bought him out, then they made it St. Louis, then they traded him, then they just made it Steven Stamkos. So you got to eventually where it was going to be, but then it still took some time to get there. As our friend Steven has said, a lot of prospects talk about that the first player that that's a good one too.
Yeah.
He said a lot of prospects, and Steven, make sure you get that get your quote right. A lot of prospects have said the first phone call that they've gotten after that they've been drafted by the New York Rangers usually has been Chris Kreider, or that they've all talked to Chris Kreider, or it's everyone that he's interviewed. So I saw that on Wardy NHL Rangers review. Check them out as always. It's just so I think they're going to want Chris Kreider and his leadership. And you're talking about a guy that's got 8 years. He's been playing since 2012. So 9 years of experience. And also a guy that was embattled with a head coach too. I mean, it's on. No, hold on. Well,
My,
first, let me get Steven's quote right. Their first phone call, they were from Chris Kreider. He's the one that invites him to practice during the offseason. Okay, so thank you. That's why I want to make sure I got your quote right.
the one thing about Chris Kreider, and that's all good, first one off the ice, last one off, calling prospects. But Phil will tell you this because he agrees with it. Kreider doesn't have the highest hockey IQ, and there are times where he looks like he's not even playing. Like sometimes he's just he's becomes a ghost and he doesn't do anything for a while. And is that really the type of the type of captain that you want for your team? Like, for instance, Patrice Bergeron works his tail off every second. There's no doubt about that guy's effort and leadership. So do you want that type of guy who has that type of I guess you want to call him traits in his game to be the captain of your team, regardless if he's good with your good off the ice with the kids and whatnot?
I think the problem is in his game, and if you don't play with the puck enough, the puck's got to find you. And what happens there is then you get the people that say he looks uninterested, as Sean just said,
Yeah,
or it's not going to really work. But you know what? He's a guy that's communicating. He's a guy that is working hard in practice, and that's what you want. I mean, you'd love it if everybody, the best player, was the captain of your team. And I think that somebody said, or Chris Drury actually said it. The one thing that makes you a better captain is your play. And sometimes if you got a guy that's out of there, that's a different story. By the way, I just want to bring up Killjoy. First off, welcome to the show. Secondly, they made the Stanley Cup Final 2014. What he was talking about with some guys, the sea gets a little bit heavy. And Brian Leach was a good player, but he wasn't a great captain. That's what he's trying to say with that. But Brendan Crawley, Chris Kreider's, Brendan Crawley first. Chris Kreider's dedication to the game is Yager-esque. And I am not even going to try whatever, Austin. There you go. Chris Kreider always spends time with new guys during training camp. And you know what? Those are all things that that go into a player being a captain. And it's just, I've been on teams where my best player wasn't the captain. I mean,
of course,
guys that can bring guys together. That's what matters.
And that's not a debate. I think the Panthers, before Barkov and stuff got to see, for a little while, their captain was, I think, Sean McKenzie. So it's like of course, your best player does not have to be your captain. That has nothing to do with it. My thing with Kreider is just the inconsistency in his game. And as Sean said, there are times where he just looks uninterested and he's not a factor. That has nothing to do with working hard. Yeah, obviously a player who works really hard can be your captain. That's not the issue with Kreider. My issue with Kreider is just his inconsistency and how sometimes he just looks like he's not involved in the game. Like Steven's posting these comments about, I'm not debating any of that with Kreider. Kreider's obviously, he's great with the kids and stuff. That's a fact. But that doesn't change that when he's on the ice playing, he disappears for stretches and doesn't look engaged sometimes. I don't know if that's the best choice for a captain. That's just my opinion.
I'll go with right now, using this example from my current team. I played because I've been playing on the same men's league team basically the last 8-9 years. And our current captain became captain, I only think about like 3 or 4 years ago. But it's my friend Dave Miller. And Dave's not the best player on the team. He'll tell you that right away. He'll often bench himself in favor of other players, and he'll organize everything off the ice. And if need be, he'll get in your face. But he'll hold guys accountable. And that's the thing. You want accountability and a guy that's going to hold guys accountable. If we end up getting it, and that's why you get guys like or setups where it was Wayne Gretzky was able to be the quiet statesman to lead by example, to do all this other stuff, and Mark Messier was the guy to get in everyone's face. and that was that worked great for them. They didn't have to do anything else. So, wait, Dave buys the beer. What?
This is why, yeah, I say Trouba.
And Trouba's not a bad decision either.
I think Trouba is not the same player he was in Winnipeg so far, but at least with him, I think the effort is there and the battle level is there.
But again, going back to what I was saying before about the Chris Kreider experience, is there's 2 Rangers on this team right now that are going to be key players for this team if they're going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to hear his advice on dealing with a coach that wanted something different from them. Like him and John Tortorella didn't see eye to eye, and he probably wasn't ready if you want to really look back at it. But Chris Kreider could probably tell you that. I mean, this guy had 6 goals in 2012 playoffs and then had 3 in the 2013 season, and then he had probably the biggest goal of the 2013 season, keeping them alive against the Bruins. I mean, granted, it was one more game and then that was it. They were out. But it was Tortorella always talked about trying to make Chris Kreider go through the process. And there's definitely points that he had to make. So a guy like Vitaly Kravtsov, who felt like he was being jerked around and then sent back to Russia and thrown on the 4th line with Brett Howden, not really getting any playing time. Hell, even the happiest moment of his career was his first NHL goal, and it got disallowed. So it's one of those things that you can impart that wisdom to those guys, or even a guy that was embattled with a head coach the way Kakko and David Quinn were. And
Alexis, who do you think's the best captain in the NHL?
Crosby or Taves?
Yeah, I was gonna say Captain Serious.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taves. For a while, the argument was going to be Jonathan Taves was Sidney Crosby. Sorry, Jonathan Taves was Tom Brady, and Sidney Crosby was Peyton Manning. He was just doing everything that was said, and just winning cups. That's what Taves was doing. And in the meantime, Crosby was putting up these gaudy numbers and not getting anything from it. And then, kind of just like Peyton Manning, he got 2 Super Bowls, and now it's 3 Stanley Cups for Crosby, 2 in 2 years. I still think one of those Conn Smites could have gone to Phil Kessel, but that's a different story. I mean, Crosby has had a great series. The leaders will be in 5 to 10 years. Lafreniere, Lundqvist, and Barron, 3 guys who captain their national teams at different age levels. And a matter of fact, Steven brought this up with us and also on their channel. So, sorry. Anthony, click it.
Stone. There we go. That's another good one. Yeah.
Even though he's only been a captain for 1 year, and Vegas has only had a captain for 1 year.
Bergeron's
a good choice.
Yep.
Char is a good choice. I wonder where he went. Anthony?
I believe he went to a New York team.
Oh, okay. All right. So great. He's a Ranger. Oh, wait. No, that's right.
Hey.
Yeah. So, but we are going to leave you guys on that because we're going for a short show today. We're just trying to focus on the fantasy. After all, this is going to help out the Bar Talk show that I just put up at 3:00. Awesome. So you guys got any other? Actually, anybody have any fantasy questions?
I would say Patrick Kane is a guy that, even though he's getting older, he's a guy that could be very, very useful if you could get him. I mean, he's a year removed from him, 84 points. I think he had 60. I think he had 60 something last year.
He had
1 games.
He had 66 points last season, and that was with basically an all scrub team.
Yeah,
you didn't have Jonathan Taves. You didn't have any big name guys.
Kirby Doc was hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's still playing an elite level I would think he's easily a second round pick.
I gotta ask this question because after him, they got Darcy Kemper at 20. And I'm sorry. I forgot about this. For one of the guys I would definitely avoid in a fantasy draft, Evander Kane at 21. I want no part of Evander Kane this season. Yeah.
Well, you said Kemper is right behind Patty Kane?
Yeah. Actually, Kemper is in a Kane sandwich, according to Yahoo.
All right.
It goes Patrick Kane at 19, Evander Kane at 21.
They're supposed to make a decision on Evander Kane, whether or not what the ruling was, if they found if he bet on hockey. And I know Linda Cohn did an interview with him a couple days ago, and he said that he believes he's going to be cleared of all that, and he'll be ready to go.
For his sake, I really, really hope he comes up exonerated. Other than that, then you know what? That I am going to leave him back in there. Whoop, nope. For some reason, it put him undo changes. It put him back at number 1 in my pre-draft rankings. So I'm like, nope.
No.
Not putting Evander Kane first. But yeah, I would definitely avoid him.
Jack Eichel. We talking about this like last night, but I don't see Jack Eichel being a factor for anybody this year. He hasn't had a surgery yet, either one, and at this point, you got to wonder if he's even gonna play. I mean, think about it.
I don't think Jack Eichel's in the NHL next year. That's what I think.
Well, he may not be. I mean, like he said, he hasn't had surgery. He's at this point, the playing for the Olympics is probably not going to happen. And if he's not going to be healthy until February, I could see him just not playing, because what, you got come back and play March, April, and then a little bit of May, and for a team in Buffalo where you don't want to be there. But then again, honestly, him playing might behoove him, because if he wants to get out of there, he probably is going to have to prove to teams that are interested that he can still play after he comes back.
But that's after surgery, correct?
Yeah.
Because that's the other question. If they decided to this course of action of time trying to heal it, and if he doesn't have if they're waiting on the other team to do the surgery, but it makes my head spin. It honestly does.
He should be reporting. Elliot Friedman said what he thinks is going to happen. He's going to report to camp, fail the physical, and then Buffalo could potentially strip him of the C.
Which is something that Steven alluded to right here. And by the way, I can't wait for November and Thanksgiving, man. It's going to be it's going to be interesting.
I'd be surprised that that would be a disaster for Buffalo, because you just lost him for nothing. I would be very surprised if that happened.
By the way, I don't think the NHLPA will go for that. They want him to get that money.
I don't think they would go for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing it wrong. It's not a good situation at all. And it is very possible he's not traded until the summertime. But I think in order for teams really take a shot at him, they're going to want to see him play before they trade for him. I mean, Mark, would you, if you were general manager, would you trade, even, kind of like average prospects for a guy that just came off neck surgery and hasn't played in a while?
No, because especially when I got to pay $10 million to.
I wouldn't.
So you're telling me you got to throw at least 2 to 3 prospects, an NHL player already, and 1 or 2 draft picks. And yeah, and that's the funny thing too. again, we're going to go back to Steven's comments right here. It's up to the player in that case, and Eichel would lose outstanding money but could sign elsewhere. But the other thing is, there's no way a team trades him without some salary retention now, and that's 100% right.
Yeah, because this is the type of trade that's an off-season trade. It's not prototypically an in-season move. So that's
too many moving parts, and Kevin Adams screwed this up. I can't say that enough. And if people want to get on me, they're like Buffalo Sabre fans. There's some guys that have gone on to specifically say it's me. They've actually mentioned me by name, and also dislike the video and dislike my comment when I replied. But again, Kevin Adams should have. You could have gotten the most amount for him before the draft. You could have gotten at least draft, if not get draft picks this year, get draft picks next year. So then you got picks before the draft. You got picks. You got players coming in next year. Like I mentioned, 3 Rangers prospects they could throw in there. And you might want to say they're garbage, as some fans have said. But if you throw in a Matthew Robinson, a Lauri Paiuniemi, and then we could talk about maybe one other prospect, not just Ryan Strome, to make the money right. There were so many other ways to do that. But now, if you get Eichel, you lose him for 2 months. What's the point? And then he wants to play in the Olympics. So let's say he comes back, gets a surgery tomorrow, comes back in late December. He's looking 100%, goes to the Olympics, gets hurt there. Then what's the point? You just lost him again.
Here's my thing. Let's play devil's advocate here for Mark. Because I agree with you. Kevin Adams has been a disaster through this. But let's pretend for a moment Jack Eichel is this neck injury doesn't exist. Okay, he's totally healthy. You're giving up an arm and a leg for him, correct?
Hands down.
So Kevin Adams doesn't want to trade for what he views lesser packages when Eichel's hurt right now, because he's losing his franchise player for a lot less than he would normally get him if he was healthy. So in his eyes, why not trade him when his value is at the highest point again, which would be if he has a surgery, comes back, plays, and is healthy. I mean, because if you were Kevin Adams, would you trade Jack Eichel for a prospect like Matthew Robertson? I mean, be honest.
No, and of course not. But again, if this was a healthy player, but here's the other thing: who's the competition? Who's the competition? It's sort of like you're going home at the end of a night at a bar. You're trying to pick up whatever girl's remaining, and there's only one girl left. It's either that or bust. Yeah. And I know people have made that comparison too. And again, I'm not a douchebag, but it's just there's no other chance. There's no other suitors, and I'm not even sure if the Rangers are a suitor. Like they've moved on. Well, all teams have moved on. My team is on the floor from Hoosiers is what I'll say. It's just no.
Elliot said last night that at one point there were 15 teams interested in Eichel, so maybe there was a lot more competition for him than we had thought. I mean, I don't know how many of them are serious, but he said 15 teams were interested in Jack Eichel.
I think I said this to FIlip. The way that I always budget my rent is I get my rent out of the way as fast as possible. I years ago broke up with my fiance, and now I'm living in a house with a bunch of great people. But my rent is sitting 2 weeks ahead of time. So I already made that plan for my rent. And then I could budget everything else from there. That's what Jack Eichel would have been. That's my rent. That's the most important thing. Money's out of the way. It's already done. All these things, all these teams have went, all right, well, we got our money out of the way, our important stuff. Now we got to focus on everything else. Now you got to worry about your car payment, your credit card payment, your cell phone, everything else. Mm-hmm. I mean, the ship sailed on Eichel. Like LA moved on. LA is going with Philip Deneau was more important than Eichel. So it's Minnesota. How do they fit him in there? we thought they couldn't fit him in anyway. So, Buffalo, what are you doing? What are you like waiting for people to be interested in a Fantastic Four movie again? Like these are all things you're like, oh well, this is a good reason why we're not going to do this.
Well, now it's a lost cause. But in the beginning, Kevin Adams was not budging off his ask of a return of a healthy Jack Eichel price, and he wouldn't back off of it. I mean, listen, like I said, and he really messed this up, but I try to look at it from his angle. He was probably getting offers that weren't sufficient, and he wasn't going to trade his franchise player, a guy who could be elite, for something that's not going to help set him up for the future.
I think he got a too good of a deal for Rasmus Ristolainen, and then he got a subpar deal for Sam Reinhart. No offense to Devin Levy, but this is now he's trying to hit a 5-run home run. You can't.
No, not anymore. No,
you definitely can't. And yes, any team that trades away the better player always loses.
For the most part, that's accurate. Well, like I said, now he's in a situation that's, I think, too far gone. He's not going to play for a while, and teams definitely aren't going to give up anything now.
It's just that's dumb. It's just dumb. And it could happen. You strip him of his captaincy, great. Now what? Now you have a disgruntled player that still hasn't had the surgery. He's already disgruntled.
Yeah,
I mean, this is going to be a topic on our next show. By the way, it's going to be he's got a right to be disgruntled.
The best case for Buffalo, if everything went right, is the following: he gets his surgery of whatever kind. They finally get that out of the way. He comes back, let's say in February or March, plays really well, and Buffalo trades him at the draft before his no movement kicks in, and gets the price of an elite player if he shows he's at that level again.
Well, what changes that again? Sorry, did he get the surgery in your opinion?
No, he hasn't had anything yet.
He hasn't had anything yet. So he sits out an entire year with no surgery. Well, so first he's sitting out an entire year. Is he Alexei Yashin? Is he Eric Lindros? Is he guys that could come back and still have a Hall of Fame career after sitting out a full season in the prime of his career at 24 years old?
Well, that would be I just laid out the best case scenario. That would be the worst case scenario if he doesn't play at all. Because if he doesn't play at all, I don't know what team's giving up strong assets for a guy who hasn't played hockey in a year.
Yeah. Yeah, Sean, my comedy is always at my best when I'm not thinking. But it's just this has been gross mishandling the entire time. And I'm siding with the player on this. Usually I'll side with the team. Like, if they would have traded him right away, that would have been fine. And it's not even sour grapes. I don't even care if he's a New York Ranger. That's a lie. I would obviously care if Jack Eichel was a New York Ranger. But the other thing is just, I want what's best for the player. And also, I want what's best for my team. And if I'm a Sabres fan, how do you like this as a Sabres fan? You're just stuck in limbo. You're like waiting for your parents to get divorced, and all that you're doing is hearing them fight all the time. And
I mean, I guess you hang your hat on Darlene and Owen Power coming, and
yeah,
I don't
Grannies, you can play on my beer league team.
Yeah.
So I do have to ask this question though. So Steven's saying that the Rangers are going to have Benjamin Moore stickers. So were they trying to dual PPG? Is that what it is? The whatever Pittsburgh Paint Arena. I forgot what PPG stood for, but the Pittsburgh one was always the paints too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know paint could actually be that much of a sponsor, but I guess, then again, I'll ask my friend who's currently got painters all over his brand new house. So I guess, yeah, that does work.
Yeah, these were the days for Sabre fans.
Yeah. That's when you had offense and a budding superstar goaltender named Dominik Hasek.
Or hell, even 2000.
Thanks, Sean. Pacific Plate Glass.
Even 2006 with the run they had with Daniel Briere and Thomas Vanek,
Chris Drury. In 2007 too.
Yeah,
they were great in 2007.
Yep. Ryan Miller. They had a good team. JP
Right.
Dumont. So, but I'm interested to see what type of sound bites and quotes maybe Eichel says tomorrow when they're on ice happens and he makes a statement while he's not playing and whatnot. I think that could be interesting if he even makes one.
I'm hearing thuds like a Tyrannosaurus Rex walking through my house right now. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting hearing all those quotes. By the way, everybody that's watching this now or later, once again, we're gonna be at the game on Sunday. All three of us, and we still got a fourth ticket that I gotta figure out what's going on with that.
Oh yeah, what's the plan for that?
I'll show you a message or an idea and all that because I'd love to meet up, have a couple beers, talk about it, take the train in. I know you have to take the train from Ronkonkoma.
I do.
And I can meet you on the Hicksville one right after that. Phil said he might drive all the way to me, and then that's it. The great thing, by the way, about these afternoon sessions is that I can talk to Anthony about getting a light for his desk so that way he's front lit. Even though it's a very picturesque yeah, well, now it looks like more of like either you're the most interesting man in the world or or a ransom negotiation. So yeah. All right. But yeah, so training camp starts today. By the way, everybody, happy training camp day. So can't wait to see.
Today was mostly like media type stuff, pictures and whatnot, physicals. Tomorrow is on ice for the majority of the teams. So that's definitely good stuff.
By the way, just add your opinion to this. Hopefully I can throw it on the short on either our YouTube or Instagram channel or anything like that. But what are you looking for specifically this preseason? Start with the Islanders, then do the Rangers.
For the Islanders, they don't have the same questions as the Rangers. Like the 12 forwards that everyone knows, like their lines, those are going to be the forward combinations. With the Chara signing, it pretty much solves the question about the left shot defense they had open. So for me, it's just about chemistry. If Trotz puts Wahlstrom with Barzal, or he plays it safe and he puts Palmieri with Barzal and leaves Wahlstrom with Parise and Pajot. And then as far as that, just the kids that are pushing, like Robin Salo and Samuel Bolduc, how much they can really put pressure, let's say on Andy Green to take that last left shot spot on the team. Because I know the Islanders are, value those two guys a lot. So as far as the Rangers, they have much more fluid stuff. Like which rookies are going to make the team? Does Morgan Barron make the team? Where does Lafreniere play? Does Lundqvist make the team? If so, what role does he play? So the Rangers is a lot more moving parts. That's the type of stuff I would look out for. Does it look like Kravtsov, took the next step with how he's playing in preseason? So for more to look at with the Rangers, the Islanders, it's more so just continuity, and how Parise Chara fit in.
Okay. Yeah, because mine was the Gallant effect, seeing how this team is going to play differently. Because I thought in the first preseason, you noticed the Islanders were better under Barry Trotz, and the other one was so how Gallant's going to change his team. We might not fully see it until the end of October. After all, that happened with Alain Vigneault, and the Rangers had their worst October almost ever under Vigneault. But then the other one for the Islanders is just, are they better? I mean, I don't know. Even if they take a sideways step, that's going to be fine. But I would like to see them improve a little bit more. So
I don't think as far as the Islanders go, when we're at the preseason game, it's the first one. I wouldn't expect to see much of their regulars.
Oh no, of course not.
I don't
but
think
that's where you judge it looking forward through the preseason.
I don't think we see Barzal on Sunday, or Lee hasn't played obviously in a long time, so I'm sure they're going to probably bring him along a little slowly. But the Rangers, you might see, being that the Rangers are at home, they might throw the fans a bone and play some of, maybe, a couple of their regular guys because they're the home team.
Yeah. Okay. But so, guys, once again, thank you very much for joining us today on, it was primarily focused on the fantasy draft, but there's so much more that was breaking today. Steven, I'll be texting you in a few minutes about potentially other dice to beat up. Now I know that you're in from the 17th to the 4th. And again, we're going to be at the game on Sunday. So come and join us as Anthony is slowly learning the nuances of StreamYard. Don't worry, Phil did that yesterday. That's why I always prefer this one, because it's got the Big Apple hockey on the top, and I mean, we could do those for close-ups, but
yeah,
it just didn't work so well when we did that one time. All right.
Well, Mark, last question for you.
Yeah.
A little bit of our play on bar talk. The Rangers beat the Islanders on Sunday preseason game.
Oh, you mean? Do they beat the Islanders? Beer? Because I have no idea. And all preseason always means to me is my scrubs beat your scrubs.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, I was regaling Phil with a story about how in 1995, first off, by the way, my brother sprung and got cable. That was nice. In 1995, I watched the Islanders and their rookies. I believe it was a game-winning OT goal from Todd Bertuzzi. And who else was on the ice? None other than the Islanders' second overall pick, Wade Redden. So it's stuff that, Wade Redden never will play a game for the Islanders. But the Islanders ended up trading for him for Rookie of the Year and a number 1 overall drafted American. Cable, it's the newest thing sweeping the nation. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen, but it doesn't matter whatsoever. They could get crushed 10-2. I was at a game, a preseason game, Rangers versus Islanders. I hate that version. I really do. I like the landscape. I was at a preseason, one of the first preseason games coming out of the lockout, and they were trying to promote the shootout. So the Rangers lost like 6-2 or something like that versus the Islanders. But every game that preseason had a shootout, and the Rangers won in shootout. So do the Rangers win the game or lose the game? I still don't know. Is that a tie? That's what I'm happy about. No more ties.
Yeah.
All right. But once again, everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I said, Steven, I'll text you in a few minutes. And let's go Rangers. And hopefully I get to see some of you on Sunday.
Let's go Islanders.
He could say that. They're playing.